Hey guys, now it's time to start a discussion about generics. So what are generics? Generics in Java provide a way to create classes, interfaces and methods with type parameters, allowing you to write code that can work with different types while maintaining type safety. Generics were introduced in Java 5 to enhance the type system and enable more robust and reusable code. So let's open IntelliJ IDE. I will create a new project. I'm gonna call it generics. And I will click on create. Let's increase this. Let's hide the project pane. Let's close this. Let's increase this. So generics are a way to tell to the compiler about what kind of object you are going to deal with. And this in turn allows us to write more consistent code and also allows the compiler to figure out errors at compile time. So we already use generics when we created a list. So if I type here list which is going to store strings, this is a generic type because here we're saying to the compiler that this list is going to store strings, text. So if you press actually let's import this, let's call it persons. Let's import the list and let's click here on the list, and as you can see this has this E here, so it doesn't have a string or an integer, it's E, so that E is gonna be replaced by what type we specify here, and this is more reusable because you can specify a list of strings, a list of integers, a list of chars, of booleans, of whatever you want. And this is possible because the list interface is using generics for its type. Alright, now let's create, to illustrate how generics works, to create our own generic classes. Let's create some classes here. I'm gonna create a class here, abstract class player. Let's put curly braces, and it's gonna have a private string name and it's gonna have a constructor public player string name curly braces this dot name equals to name semicolon, control alt L to format the code, and I will go down here. In a real app, you should create your classes in different files in src, but I'm gonna put the classes here because in this way you will see the code. So don't type the code in this way. So I'm gonna type here class football player let's put curly braces. I'm gonna type here, I'm gonna inherit from the abstract class player. Now we need to create constructor matching super. Let's create another class called baseball player. So let's copy this, let's paste it here. Let's call it baseball player. Let's change this to baseball player. Now everything is fine. And I will create another class up here called team. So class team. And this team is gonna have a generic type. So I'm gonna put angle brackets and I will put here T. So this is the generic type. I will put curly braces and press enter. Now I will create a function, a method. I will type here the method name, which is going to be add players. So I'm going to type public void But let me first create a few variables here. So I'm gonna type here private name, private string name, and private, let's call it a list of players. Let's type here players, semicolon. And the list is also gonna be of type T, so let's put T here, not player. So T is gonna be the same T here. And I'll type here the constructor public team curly braces, and I'll type here so let's put parentheses here, and I'll type here string name and list of type T of players. So I'm gonna type here this dot name equals to name, and this dot players equals to players, semicolon. Now I'll create a method here, public void add players. It's gonna take a player as a parameter of type, so I'm gonna type here T player curly braces, and I'll put here if players that contains, so players that contains player, the player parameter, then I'm gonna say SOUT, I'm gonna say player colon, and I'm gonna say here I'm gonna type player dot, and notice when I put that I don't have, because here I want to get the field name of the player, but because here we are passing T, the compiler doesn't know if this T is gonna have a field player, because it's a generic type T, it's not a player. So if I put player here, if I put now player dot name, now player dot, so it should generate getters and setters. So let me go here, let's generate getters and setters. Alright, and if I go here now, if I put player dot get name, we can get the name of the player, because now it knows that is a player. But if I put only T here, it doesn't know that, and we need to use casting. We need to give the compiler a hint that this is gonna be a player. So let me type this again. So I'll type here SOUT, I'll put a double quotation marks player, and I'll put plus, and here I will type, I'll put here in parentheses player. So I'm gonna cast, I'm gonna put dot, I'm gonna type player dot get name. Alright, so I need to type it exactly like this for the casting to work. And now I'm gonna put an else here, else. So if it's not in the team, I'm gonna type here players dot add player, semicolon, and I'll put SOUT player. Let's copy this. Let's say here player it's already in the team, and here is gonna say, let's copy this, let's plus to concatenate this, and it's gonna say plus double quotation marks let's say was added to the team. Right, so we have our generic class, we have our two football player and baseball player. Now let's go up here and I'll type here football player equals to new football player, and it's gonna have a name. Let's call it football player 1. Football player 1. Let's press Ctrl D. Let's create another football player 2. Now let's create a team. I'm gonna type here team. Let's call it football team. And now I need to specify the type here. So I need to put here the type. So I'm gonna type here football player for the type. So I'm gonna store football players in this team equals to new team, semicolon, and let's put here football player. Alright, so let's put here the name of the team. Let's call it football team. A list of football players. So I'm gonna type here so I'm gonna put here on the next line new array list, and let's pass here football player 1, or let me create an array list above. So I'll go up here and I'll type list. It's gonna store football players gonna be equal to new array list, semicolon, and here I'll type players dot add football player players dot add football player 2. Now let's pass this list here to the constructor of the team. So let's type here players, and now everything is fine. Let's put semicolon here. So this is how you can use generics. Alright, now let's run this code to see what we get in the output. Alright, so we get nothing in the output, and that is fine. Now let's go here and let's type football team dot add players. Let's type football player and football team dot add players football player 2. Now let's delete this list of players and let's pass null here. So you don't pass any kind of value, pass null. And now if you run this, you get an exception. Because the players is null, right? So we can pass null there because getting an error. So let's press Ctrl Z a few times, and let's create another football player here, football player 3, and we're gonna add to the team the football player 3. So now if you run this, now we'll get in the output the expected. We get player and get football player 3 was added to the team. So this code was called and everything now works fine. Let's put. Alright, so this is our discussion for this video. This is how you can create a generic class, a generic list, a generic list also here. This is how you can use casting to get the player here So I'm gonna end this video here. We're gonna continue our discussion in the next video.